You finish dinner. Maybe it was a good meal, pasta, a glass of wine, a little dessert. You settle into the couch to watch some TV, and then it starts. That familiar burning rising up from your chest, that tight, uncomfortable feeling that doesn't quite go away no matter how you sit. You reach for the antacids, again. If that sounds like your evenings lately, you are not alone. And I want you to know something important right from the start. You are not stuck with this. Acid reflux affects millions of Americans over the age of 60. And the frustrating truth is, it tends to get worse as we get older, not better. But what most people don't realize is that the foods on your plate have an enormous amount of power over how you feel. The right choices can calm things down significantly. The wrong ones, even foods you think of as healthy, can make every night miserable. Today I'm going to walk you through 6 foods that can help calm acid reflux and 4 foods that are most likely triggering it. And I'll give you a simple evening routine you can actually start using tonight. My name is Dr. Leonid Kim, and welcome back to Senior Health Review, the channel dedicated to practical, honest health information for adults over 60. Before we get to the food list, I want to take just a few minutes to explain why acid reflux tends to worsen after 60. Because when you understand the why, the food choices make a lot more sense. The first thing to know is that your body has a little valve between your esophagus, the tube that carries food from your mouth to your stomach, and the stomach itself. That valve is called the lower esophageal sphincter, or LES. Its job is simple. Open when food comes down, then close tightly so stomach acid stays where it belongs. As we age, that valve can weaken. It doesn't close as firmly as it used to. And when it doesn't seal properly, stomach acid can creep back up. And that's what causes the burning sensation we call heartburn or acid reflux. There's more. As we get older, digestion naturally slows down. Food can sit in the stomach longer than it used to, and when your stomach is full for longer periods, there's more opportunity for acid to push upward against that weakened valve. Now here's something that surprises many of my patients. Certain medications that are very common in people over 60 can make reflux worse. Blood pressure medications, non-steroidal anti-inflammatory drugs, NSAIDs, like ibuprofen, even some osteoporosis medications and iron supplements can irritate the esophagus or relax the LES further. This doesn't mean you should stop your medications. Absolutely do not do that without talking to your doctor first. But it does mean that if you're on multiple medications and experiencing frequent reflux, that conversation with your doctor is worth having. One more thing I want to mention because I think it's important. Frequent acid reflux isn't just uncomfortable. Over time, it can cause real damage. Repeated exposure to stomach acid can irritate and scar the lining of your esophagus. One condition, called Barrett's esophagus, where the esophageal lining actually begins to change, is more common in people with long-standing untreated reflux. I'll come back to warning signs to watch for at the end of this video. Now, everything I'm sharing today about food and lifestyle is designed to complement your medical care, not replace it. These are tools. They work best when they work alongside your doctor's guidance, especially if you're already managing a diagnosis or taking medications. With that said, let's talk about what to eat. The first food on our list is one of the simplest, most reliable things you can eat if you're dealing with acid reflux, and that's oatmeal. Here's why it works. Oatmeal is rich in soluble fiber, which absorbs excess acid in the stomach and helps move food through your digestive system more efficiently. Think of it as a sponge. It soaks up the acid that would otherwise have nowhere to go but up. It also creates a gentle coating effect on the stomach lining, which can reduce irritation. I had a patient, a retired school teacher in her late 60s, who had been dealing with morning heartburn for years. She was eating toast or a bagel every morning. When we switched her to plain oatmeal with a little bit of sliced banana on top, she noticed a meaningful difference in just 2 weeks. She told me, "I didn't think breakfast could be the problem." How to use it. Eat oatmeal plain or with a drizzle of honey and some fresh fruit. Avoid the flavored pre-packaged varieties. They're often loaded with sugar and artificial flavorings that can undo the benefit. Plain rolled oats or steel-cut oats are your best choice. The second food is one of the oldest digestive remedies in the world, and one that actually holds up well under modern research. That's ginger. Ginger has natural anti-inflammatory properties, but what makes it particularly useful for acid reflux is something called its prokinetic effect. It helps your stomach empty more quickly. Remember what I said earlier about slow digestion and reflux? When food moves through the stomach faster, there's less pressure building up against the LES. Less pressure means less reflux. Several studies have looked at ginger's effect on nausea, bloating, and digestive discomfort, and the results are consistently positive, particularly for people with slower digestion. One of my patients, a 71-year-old gentleman who loved his after-dinner coffee, switched to a warm cup of ginger tea in the evenings. He told me after about a month that he was sleeping better than he had in years. He said, "I didn't think I could give up the coffee, but honestly, the tea feels better." How to use it. Fresh ginger root steeped in hot water makes a simple, effective tea. You can also add thin slices of fresh ginger to soups or stir-fries. What to avoid. Ginger ale. Most commercial ginger ales contain very little actual ginger, plenty of sugar, and carbonation, all of which can worsen reflux. Our third entry might be the easiest one to add to your daily routine. Bananas and melons like cantaloupe or honeydew. These fruits have a relatively neutral pH, meaning they're not acidic. That matters because one of the main ways food affects reflux is through its acidity. The more acidic the food, the more it can irritate the esophagus and trigger the LES to loosen. Bananas, in particular, have a mild coating effect on the esophageal lining. Think of it as a gentle buffer. They're also easy to digest and gentle on the stomach. I had a patient who loved citrus fruit. Oranges every morning, grapefruit with lunch. When I suggested she swap to bananas and cantaloupe for a few weeks, she was skeptical. But she came back and said her afternoon reflux had nearly disappeared. "I thought fruit was always healthy," she said. "I didn't know it mattered which fruit." How to use it. Bananas make a great mid-morning or afternoon snack. Melon works beautifully as a light dessert after dinner. And because it's low in acid and high in water content, it's one of the safer fruits to eat in the evening hours. Food number 4 is a category that might not surprise you, but the reason it helps might. We're talking about leafy greens, spinach, kale, romaine lettuce, broccoli, and similar vegetables. Leafy greens are naturally alkaline, meaning they help neutralize acid in the stomach. They're also very low in fat, which is significant because high-fat foods slow down digestion and put extra pressure on the LES. And they're rich in dietary fiber, which supports healthy gut motility overall. One of my patients, a 68-year-old man who had been relying on antacids almost every day, agreed to add a simple lunch salad: spinach, cucumber, a bit of grilled chicken, and olive oil. After 3 weeks, he cut his antacid use in half. He said, "I never thought something that simple could actually move the needle." How to use it. Steamed, lightly sautéed with minimal oil, or raw in salads. The preparation method matters. Deep-fried vegetables or greens tossed in heavy, creamy dressings lose much of their benefit. Keep it simple: olive oil, lemon, in moderation, fresh herbs. A word of caution. If you're on blood thinners like warfarin, be consistent with your intake of leafy greens, rather than dramatically increasing them all at once, as they contain vitamin K. Your doctor can guide you on this. Our fifth food might be a little surprising: plain, low-fat yogurt. Let me explain. Full-fat dairy is actually a trigger for many people with acid reflux. The high fat content slows digestion and relaxes the LES. But plain, low-fat yogurt is a different story. It's a good source of protein and calcium without the fat load. And importantly, it contains probiotics, which are beneficial bacteria that help balance the gut microbiome. A healthy gut microbiome doesn't just benefit digestion broadly. Emerging research suggests it plays a role in regulating stomach acid production and reducing inflammation in the digestive tract. It's not a cure, but it's a meaningful supporting player. I had a patient in her early 70s who was experiencing reflux and also dealing with some general digestive discomfort, bloating, irregularity. She started having a small cup of plain yogurt every morning. After about a month, she said both issues had improved. I didn't expect something so simple to help with so many things. How to use it. Choose plain, low-fat or non-fat yogurt, not flavored, not sweetened. The added sugar in flavored yogurts can be counterproductive. You can add a few slices of banana or a drizzle of honey if you need a little sweetness. Avoid full-fat Greek yogurt as a daily staple if you're managing reflux. Save it for occasional use. The sixth and final food on our calming list is lean protein, specifically skinless chicken breast, turkey, and fish like salmon, tilapia, or cod. Here's the key principle. High-fat foods, including fatty cuts of meat like ribs, ribeye, or dark meat poultry with the skin, slow down gastric emptying significantly. The longer food sits in your stomach, the more pressure builds against the LES. Lean protein provides the staying power you want from a meal without that fat-induced delay. Salmon deserves a special mention because it's also rich in omega-3 fatty acids, which have anti-inflammatory properties. And inflammation is part of what makes reflux symptoms so uncomfortable. One of my patients switched from his regular habit of a ribeye steak with butter a couple of times a week to grilled salmon. After about 3 weeks, he came in and said, "I'm sleeping better and I haven't needed antacids at night." He was genuinely surprised. He hadn't expected the switch to make that much difference. How to use it. Grill, bake, steam, or poach your lean proteins. Avoid frying, heavy cream sauces, or butter-heavy preparations. Those add fat back in and undo the benefit. Season with herbs and spices rather than fatty marinades. Alright, now for the part that can be a little harder to hear. These are the 4 most common food triggers for acid reflux in people over 60. I'm going to be honest with you. Some of these are foods you probably enjoy. I'm not here to take joy out of your meals. But I do want to give you the information you need to make choices that help you feel better. Trigger number 1: tomatoes and tomato products. At the top of the trigger list, tomatoes and tomato-based products, including marinara sauce, pizza sauce, ketchup, salsa, and canned tomato soup. Tomatoes are naturally high in acid. When you eat them, especially in concentrated forms like sauces, that acid directly irritates the lining of the esophagus and can weaken the LES, making it easier for stomach acid to reflux upward. This one catches many people off guard because tomatoes are nutritious. They're full of lycopene, vitamins, and antioxidants. The goal isn't to eliminate them forever, it's to reduce them, especially during flare-ups, and to be mindful of when you eat them. A little fresh tomato in a salad at lunch is very different from a bowl of marinara pasta at 7 p.m. If you love Italian food, experiment with olive oil and herb-based sauces rather than tomato-based ones. You might be surprised how satisfying they are. Trigger number 2: coffee and caffeinated drinks. I know. I hear this reaction from patients all the time. Please don't take away my coffee. Here's the honest truth about coffee and caffeine. They trigger reflux through two separate mechanisms. First, caffeine directly relaxes the LES, the valve that keeps acid where it belongs. Second, coffee itself, including decaf, is acidic and stimulates the production of stomach acid. So even if you switch to decaf thinking you've solved the problem, you may still experience symptoms. Now, I'm not telling everyone over 60 to eliminate coffee entirely. For many people, the solution is moderation and timing. Try limiting yourself to 1 cup in the morning, not on an empty stomach, and not after 2 p.m. Many of my patients find that this simple adjustment, 1 cup, with food, earlier in the day, reduces their reflux significantly without requiring them to give up coffee altogether. What to watch out for beyond coffee? Energy drinks, strong teas, and caffeinated sodas can have the same effect. Trigger number 3, chocolate. This is the one that truly disappoints people. Chocolate, both dark and milk, is unfortunately one of the more potent acid reflux triggers. It's a double problem. Chocolate contains caffeine, which, as we just discussed, relaxes the LES. It also contains a compound called theobromine, which has a similar effect. And to make matters worse, chocolate, especially milk chocolate, is high in fat, which slows digestion. That combination, a relaxed LES plus a full, slowly emptying stomach, is essentially a recipe for a difficult night. I had a patient who couldn't figure out why her reflux was so much worse on the weekends. When I asked about her habits, she mentioned she liked to have a square or two of dark chocolate after dinner on Friday and Saturday. That was the culprit. Once she moved her chocolate treat to earlier in the day, say mid-afternoon rather than after dinner, her nighttime symptoms improved considerably. The lesson isn't always never again. It's about when and how much. Trigger number 4, alcohol. The final trigger on our list is one of the most significant, especially for people over 60, alcohol, and this includes wine, beer, and spirits. Alcohol is particularly problematic for acid reflux for several reasons. It directly relaxes the LES, meaning that glass of wine at dinner is literally loosening the valve that keeps your stomach acid contained. It also stimulates the production of stomach acid, and it impairs the motility of the esophagus itself, reducing its ability to clear acid efficiently if it does reflux. After 60, the liver processes alcohol more slowly than it did when you were younger. This means alcohol stays in your system longer, and its effects on the LES and stomach can persist well into the night, long after you've finished your last drink. Even 1 glass of red wine at dinner can be enough to cause a difficult night for many of my patients over 60. I've had patients who were convinced their reflux was a diet issue, and when we looked more carefully, the single biggest factor was a glass of wine with dinner every night. This doesn't mean you can never have a drink. It means being aware that alcohol and reflux don't mix well, and that reducing your intake, particularly in the evenings, can make a significant difference in how you sleep. Okay, you now have the food knowledge. Let me put it together into something practical, what I call the Calm Evening Protocol. These are 5 simple habits that, when you do them consistently, can significantly reduce nighttime and post-dinner reflux. First, finish dinner at least 3 hours before you lie down. This is probably the single most impactful habit change for people with reflux. When you lie down with a full stomach, gravity is no longer helping you keep acid where it belongs. Your stomach needs time to begin emptying before you're horizontal. 3 hours is the general guideline, 2 hours minimum. Second, eat smaller portions and eat slowly. After 60, your digestive system genuinely works better with smaller, more manageable amounts of food. A fuller stomach means more pressure on the LES. Take your time at meals. Put the fork down between bites. Your stomach will thank you. Third, replace your after-dinner coffee or tea with ginger tea. We talked about ginger earlier. Warm, fresh brewed ginger tea after dinner is a beautiful, satisfying swap that actively helps your stomach empty more efficiently rather than hindering it. Many of my patients make this their new evening ritual, and they come back saying they miss the coffee a lot less than they expected. Fourth, take a gentle walk after dinner. 10 to 15 minutes of gentle movement after a meal, even just around the block or in your backyard, helps stimulate digestion and reduces the time food sits in your stomach. It does not mean vigorous exercise, which can actually worsen reflux. Just a calm, easy stroll. Fifth, elevate the head of your bed. If you're experiencing nighttime reflux, consider raising the head of your bed by 6 to 8 inches. And I mean the actual bed frame, not just propping up extra pillows. Extra pillows can actually compress your abdomen and make things worse. A wedge pillow designed for acid reflux is another good option. Gravity, working gently all night long, is one of your best tools. And one more thing. Avoid snacking after 8 p.m., especially on the trigger foods we discussed. Late night eating, even a small amount, gives your stomach something to work on just as you're winding down and about to lie down. You don't need to do all of these perfectly starting tomorrow. Pick one. Start with the ginger tea swap tonight. Add the walk next week. These things compound over time. Before I close today, I need to spend a moment on something important, because diet changes and lifestyle habits are powerful tools, but they are not the answer to everything. There are certain symptoms that mean it's time to stop adjusting your diet and start making a phone call to your doctor. Please do not ignore these signs. Difficulty swallowing or pain when you swallow. This needs to be evaluated. Unexplained weight loss. If you're losing weight without trying, in combination with digestive symptoms, that warrants medical attention. Vomiting blood or noticing black, tarry stools. These are signs of bleeding in the digestive tract. Please seek care promptly. Reflux symptoms that occur more than twice a week despite dietary changes. At that point, you may be dealing with GERD, gastroesophageal reflux disease, which may benefit from medication or further evaluation. And if you've had frequent acid reflux or heartburn for many years, and you've never had an endoscopy, a procedure where a camera looks at your esophagus, please talk to your doctor about whether that's appropriate. Long-standing, untreated reflux increases the risk of a condition called Barrett's esophagus, where the lining of the esophagus changes in response to repeated acid exposure. In some cases, Barrett's esophagus can progress further. Catching it early makes a difference. I say this not to alarm you. I say it because I want you to take your health seriously. The foods and habits I've shared today are real and meaningful ways to reduce your symptoms, but they work best as part of a complete picture that includes your doctor. Acid reflux after 60 is common, but common doesn't mean inevitable, and it certainly doesn't mean you have to live with it night after night. What I want you to walk away with today is this. Small, deliberate choices add up. Swapping your morning bagel for oatmeal. Reaching for ginger tea instead of coffee in the evening. Finishing dinner a little earlier. Saying no to the late-night glass of wine. None of these changes is dramatic, but together they can meaningfully shift how you feel and how you sleep. Start tonight. Pick one thing from what you learned today and try it. If this video helped you, I'd love to know. Hit the like button and subscribe to Senior Health Review so you don't miss our next video. And I want to ask you something. Leave me a comment below. What's your biggest acid reflux trigger? Is it coffee? Tomatoes? Something else? I read every comment, and your responses genuinely shape the topics I cover next. Next week, we're talking about something that affects far more people over 60 than most people realize. The one common breakfast habit that may be quietly raising your blood pressure. Most people have no idea it's happening. I'll see you then. Take care of yourself, and as always, talk to your doctor. That relationship is irreplaceable. I'm Dr. Leonid Kim. Thank you for watching Senior Health Review.